100 days ago, we planted potatoes in this cardboard box. Guten gardening, everybody. You know, I love a good potato experiment, and this season we've been growing some of our potatoes in cardboard boxes. Now, we've done 2 separate plantings of these cardboard boxes. The first one I'm going to harvest today, and when this video comes out, I will have already harvested our second box as well. It's just that we planted it a little bit later, but I want to do all the harvests so you can see everything before I release this video. Now, here are some things to know about the box that we chose. After 100 days with lots of rain, etc., this box is ready to fall apart. So I can't get in here and move it around very much without it completely crumbling. Secondly, what I've noticed about these boxes in particular, as the rain starts to hit them, they start to warp. And what that means is some of the areas where we wouldn't want them exposed, like the potatoes, etc., there's some runoff still within the box, but it creates a little bit of a problem that you'd have to consistently come in and add more mix. So we needed to add more mix in some areas than we did. But what I'm seeing right now are some exposed potatoes because for the last week here in Zone 5, Wisconsin, we've been getting a whole bunch of rain and that's opened up these potatoes. But the plants themselves have died back, so it's time to get in here and harvest and see how we did. So one thing that I think it makes sense to have is a wheelbarrow or something nearby that you can put this mix into as you're harvesting, because otherwise it's just going to spread out everywhere and I don't want to lose all this mix just onto the ground. I want to be able to reuse it. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. As I'm harvesting these potatoes, I'm going to be taking this really nice mix and keeping it in a different container. Well, the first thing I'm noticing here is one potato that looks like it's had a little bit of damage at the top, but again, that one popped right up. These are our store-bought reds. This will be our second store-bought red harvest that we're doing. So let's see how well they did. Again, growing in these cardboard boxes means that we're growing in a box that is essentially free. And with our first harvest, the size of these store-bought reds wasn't that great. Let's start right here. Start right here and see what we have. We got a couple of weeds growing in here.
I already see some exposed.
You see some exposed? Okay, well, hold on. Let's start right here. Let's start with these right here and see what we got in terms of size. Well, these are definitely bigger than the ones that we got out of our galvanized steel container. I think part of it is they had more space, although we did plant 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We had 5 plants in here. So we had more space, even though we planted 5 in here. I would say these look pretty nice. Like that's a nice sized potato to come out of some store-bought potatoes. Let me move this out of the way. Now my daughter thinks that this is going to be where we have our biggest potatoes. So let's see. You can just pull it right out of there. You can see there's still some life left in this potato. Yeah, I mean those are some really nice looking potatoes right there. So the fact that we're getting some really nice production out of here from a free container makes me very, very happy. All right, what do you see? You've got another couple. So these are the results of one plant in here, okay? So one of the things that we talked about when we were picking this box is we did our best to pick a box that was a little bit heavier duty. But what I want to show you here, look, after 100 days, of course, I mean, you would expect this, but this is just as flimsy as anything else. So I think we chose well. I mean, the depth that we had for this, look, there's a couple more right in here. The depth that we have for this box, ooh, fantastic. The depth that we have is about 10 inches or so, and you can see it's not filled the whole way. I really was trying to figure out how much should I fill this box up so that I don't cause it to completely fall apart with too much pressure from the mix. But what I'm seeing here is maybe we could have done a better job of getting these covered a little bit earlier, but the results are looking quite nice. So that means when we harvest the other ones, it'll be interesting to see because we planted those a little bit later, but it'll be interesting to see how well those other ones do. All right, our last 2 plants are right over in here. I think we already got a couple of the potatoes from them, but these are French fingerlings right here. So I planted some French fingerlings. We've got French fingerlings in random spots in the garden here, but the French fingerlings clearly, from the size of those, enjoyed growing in here. That's a really nice size for a French fingerling. And as always, we've got some other fingerlings in here too. Anytime my daughter helps, we've got some fingerlings for sure.
You missed something.
I missed something?
Yeah.
What do you see? There you go. Yeah, don't want to miss that. All right, the last potato plant was right here. Some more French fingerlings. Oh, we missed the store-bought red. Okay. Yes, another store-bought red. I tell you what, I'm pretty pleased with this first harvest here. And as I mentioned, it'll be really interesting to see how the other box did as well. I've removed a lot of the mix from here, but I want to show you what happens to this box if I try to pick it up at this point. It's really completely gone. I mean, you can see, obviously, we expected that to be the case. And so one of the things to note too is we did see, because of all those holes, we did see some grass growing into this side area. So we're starting to see some weeds in there. But really, what's nice is now that we've created this spot and the cardboard has completely, except for there was some tape on the bottom. There you go. That's all that's left. Everything else is decomposed. And now this spot is cleared out. The grass underneath here is gone. It's dead. This spot can be used as another little bed, or we can go ahead. I'll pull all this up if I want to here. I'll pull all this up and I can go ahead and put a new container here for next season. Well, I would say this isn't too shabby for one little box. And again, if you have a box on hand, even a smaller box, something that's heavy enough duty, you could potentially grow some potatoes in a free raised bed, essentially for free. And so I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna harvest the other box. It's gonna be a little bit before I do this harvest, but in the magic of YouTube, it's actually gonna happen right now. All right, we're back about a week later, and to be honest, I wanted to wait longer before I harvested this box of potatoes. But when I came down here, I noticed something that I really didn't like, and that is that there were some potatoes on the surface and they were getting eaten. It's a different part of our garden, toward the back part of our garden, and so I didn't want to run the risk, even though the plants still have, as you can see, some life in them. I didn't want to run the risk of them all getting eaten up. And so this is one of the downsides to growing in this cardboard box, because maybe if it's a different container, I would just try moving this to a different part of the garden. But as such, I can't really do that, because if I try to pick this up, what's going to happen? It's going to fall apart completely. So this is at least 2 weeks less growing time than the other box of potatoes. So what I expect out of here would be some smaller potatoes, basically some new potatoes, because these were planted later in the season. And that's exactly what I'm seeing. There was that one nice one there that was eaten up, and then these, which are a good bit smaller, as you can tell, but there's a nice one here as well. So what I'm gonna say, oh, and there's another nice one. I'll tell you what, if they had a little bit more time, if I could give them a little bit more time, I think we'd see even bigger potatoes out of here. And what I'm noticing is that this, in terms of a means of growing potatoes in cardboard boxes, to me is one of the methods. Oh, I just scratched this one, but it's one of the methods that makes sense, because we're getting plenty of size from these potatoes. Ignore that scratch. Plenty of size from these potatoes, and they seem to be living quite long enough to be productive for us. These still had several weeks worth of life. If I show you what we've got here, you can see they're definitely dying back. You can see that right there. They're dying back, but there's still a lot of greenery in here. So again, typically I would leave these for another couple of weeks, but that's not going to happen here, because I do not want to lose any more potatoes to whatever was eating things down here. You know, I think there's so many reasons to like the fall time of year. So many, but potato harvest season for me is one of my biggest reasons for enjoying this time of year. As a reminder, these are also, just like in the other box that we harvested, these are the store-bought potatoes that we saved. 79 cents for a 5-pound bag. We planted 5 in here, so you can imagine that if we did have a little bit more time with these, the return, I mean, essentially the bag of soil that I put in here, if you watch that video, the bag of the mix that I have in here was $1. The box was free, and then the potatoes were next to nothing. And yeah, these are small. I've already talked through that, but this is the way to go. This is a great way to grow. And early on, in terms of placement, this is a great way to pick a spot, find a box around the house, and see what you can get out of here. And the depth of this box makes me think that I probably could have grown a whole bunch of other types of vegetables in here as well. Yeah, and you see all the little potatoes that didn't have time to develop. But we got some pretty nice numbers out of here, and decent size considering I didn't get to let them grow until the plants died back completely. All right, let me show you what I ended up getting out of this box. So what I'm going to say is that the results we got from growing in these boxes are more than enough to let me know that we're going to keep growing in boxes in future seasons. We might even, if we can allocate enough space, grow in some boxes over the winter, because we got a whole bunch of indoor gardening coming your way in the next couple of months. It's about to get pretty cold here in Zone 5, Wisconsin, don't you think? Well, hey, this was a fun experiment. This is one method that I am confident in, and I hope you consider giving a try as well. If you enjoyed today's potato harvest video from cardboard boxes, don't forget to give us a like, leave us a comment, remember to share and subscribe, and most importantly, remember, when you're with us, you are good to grow.